Hello and welcome back to Rehydrate. This season we have read Project Hail Mary, and today we're going to be discussing the movie version of Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. This episode will contain full spoilers for both the book of Project Hail Mary and the movie, and probably some other stuff too. I'm guessing The Martian, so like be if you're really worried about spoilers for The Martian, like be prepared for that. My name is Dan, and I have read the book as part of the podcast, and I've seen the movie.
My name is Priya, and I have read the book and seen the movie as well.
My name is Thalia. I've read the book a few times, both in paper and on the audiobook, and I was able to see Project Hail Mary during its opening weekend.
And for this episode, we have a special guest, Spencer. Spencer is joining us. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, I'm Spencer. I'm a post-production audio engineer, mostly in the dialogue area of specialties. And I have not read the book, but I have seen the film 3 times.
3 times. Okay, well, I guess we know your thoughts on it. So I guess let's just dive into kind of our thoughts on the movie. So one of the things I also want to talk about when we were in our initial thoughts is like how you saw the movie, because I think one of the interesting things about the movie is that it came out in all these like specialty formats. You know, like all this like 40x and IMAX 70 millimeter or whatever. So I'm interested to see how, hear about how all you guys saw it. But maybe let's start with Spencer first, since you've seen it 3 times. And then we can get into like our thoughts as book readers too. But I would like to know your thoughts of did you know anything about the movie beforehand, or like did you ever spoil on anything besides the trailers that gave away?
Only thing I would say I knew going in, because obviously I go to the movies quite a bit. I try and go at least once a week, sort of thing, maybe once every 2 weeks, depending on what's coming out or what's being played at a repertory theater. So I had seen the trailer a couple of times. So obviously I knew he was by himself, the sun was dying, and there was a little guy named Rocky. and that was, some sort of stone like alien. But other than that, I basically went in blind, and I saw it opening weekend in IMAX at the Scotiabank Theatre here on Burrard in Vancouver. Then I saw it again. Mostly I saw it 3 times, mostly because I just had different people wanting to see it who just had to see it at different times, and I'm a little more flexible with my schedule. And then I saw it in 70 millimeter, non-IMAX 70 millimeter, so just regular 70 millimeter film at International Village at the Cineplex Odeon there in Vancouver. And then I saw it one more time on Sunday in just regular digital DCP format, so just regular sort of 4K digital, as well, again, at the International Village.
Could you tell like really big differences? I've heard like the 70 millimeter IMAX is just amazing, but I didn't get a chance to see it that way. Like, what was your experience?
So I didn't see it. I saw the IMAX I saw was a digital IMAX screening. So the cool thing about the theater is it's a pretty brand new IMAX theater here in Vancouver. Originally, the only IMAX theaters were sort of out in like sort of other places in the Lower Mainland. So it was a digital IMAX with especially because I'm obviously an audio person. It had the 12.0 full 3D audio IMAX experience and stuff. But I didn't. And then the 70 millimeter is just 70 millimeter film. It's not the IMAX format film. I have seen the IMAX, like the difference between IMAX and IMAX 70 millimeter at Oppenheimer a couple of years ago, because I did go and see that. And I mean, I'm not the type of person as a movie watcher who really gets all hyped up on film formats, because generally what happens with film formats is if you don't watch it like the first day, the quality just starts to degrade. Like when I watched Oppenheimer, there was a lot of big hairs that looked as big as the explosion like on there. But I mean, other than the sort of general thing, you get the difference between film and digital, which is digital is obviously very clean, sharp. It never goes out of focus. The colors are always as correct as possible. film, the 70 millimeter was great. It looks awesome. It's on a huge screen. You obviously get the depth, but things would go out of focus a little bit. The blacks would sometimes be maybe a little too dark. But I mean, to me, I'm the type of person who could watch film in any sort of format. Being a child of the '90s, if I watched 90% of the films I watched on VHS on 480i tube television. So
Yeah, same,
as
same.
long as the story's good, I enjoy the movie as that much.
Cool. Yeah, so let's get into the actual movie. So kind of going in blind, like what were your thoughts? Like did it meet your expectations? Did it exceed it? Or I mean, you saw it 3 times, so I guess that you liked it, but
Yeah, I mean, the big thing for me is I was going in at least with the expectation that I was going to like three major aspects of the film, probably. Is one, I'm a big Lord and Miller fan as directors. I've been a big fan of them since they did Clone High in the early 2000s, watching that cartoon and stuff. So I've always liked their filmmaking and their storytelling. I think they're really good at weaving, still being funny, but weaving a really solid, usual emotional arc into their stories, whether they're writing them or adapting them. Two, big fan of Gosling. Gosling's my boy. Been big, if I had stock in Gosling, I'd have a lot of stock in Gosling. Really like him. So, and I knew he could give all, again, as an actor, he understands those subtleties and creating a good, emotional arc in his own performance. And obviously he can do the comedy thing really well, which I don't think a lot of people can pull off super effectively. And then the third is I'm a big fan of Daniel Pemberton, who's the composer for the film. I really like his scores in previous things, especially the Spider-Man across the universe, like the Miles Morales animated films that Lord and Miller produced and somewhat directed. I can't remember how much they're involved on the directing and writing. I know they're not like the main directors or something. It's like a Tim Burton's, Nightmare Before Christmas. Tim Burton didn't direct it, but is involved in a lot of the art aspects. So yeah, I knew going in that with those three elements, would at least, if I was on Letterboxd, would give it a 3 out of 5. And I thought that the general, you know, I guess we'll get, because you've already gave the spoiler warning. The arc, I wasn't expecting the whole he didn't want to go up, like that sort of, and I liked the storytelling aspect of how they did the flashbacks of like him kind of remembering what was going on and stuff. So, and I thought that worked really well. But like overall, I really like the film. Like I think if Gosling doesn't even just get a nom for Best Actor in next year's Oscars, I'd be very shocked. I think this film probably is the one film in the sort of first, second quarter that will have the legs to get over to the Oscars, still be remembered, sort of like how Sinners was, and also how Everything Everywhere All at Once was. It just has enough, I think, enough juice. It's still being in the theater now is pretty, I think, a good mark of that. Unless they just had some crazy, contract that said you have to keep it in theaters as long as possible. But I think yeah, I just really like the film overall, and obviously we can get more deeper into certain aspects, but I thought overall, like, the visuals were great, and again, wasn't expecting anything less on that, but I think overall I was just really happy with the story. I just didn't go in knowing what the twists and turns were going to be, and all the twists and turns got me, especially the first time I saw it. To say I wasn't tearing up would be a lie.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, maybe let's go with Priya next. What did you think, and how did you see it?
I only saw it in just regular IMAX. I saw it, I think, like opening weekend, I'm pretty sure. It was as good as I expected it to be and more. I think this is a really hot take, I guess, as like coming from someone in the reader community. I liked it better than the book. And that's seldom the
That's a
case. But
that's a
I
hot
think
take.
it is a hot take. It's one of the rare adaptations I feel that basically weeded out everything we didn't need in the book and kept everything like the heart of it, the soul of it. It was just beautifully rendered, I feel like. I guess after this, I could say that like Ryan Gosling can do no wrong and just keep sending him to space. I don't know if you guys have seen him in First Man, but that's a phenomenal movie. And I was like, oh, Ryan Gosling's going back to space, but in a very different context. So, yeah, I was like especially glad because I took my daughter to see it and I was like, oh God, I hope that the weird conversations in the flashbacks from the book don't happen in the movie. Because like that's gonna be a little weird to explain to the child. Like my friend was also saying the same because she took her kids to see it, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm hoping that I don't have to explain something to my kids afterwards." And they just completely cut all of that stuff out, and I was like, "Thank you, thank you." But yeah, I thought they kept all the best parts, and were it was a faithful adaptation. And then actually, because my husband has to listen to a podcast immediately after watching a movie or like an interview or like basically anything he can get his hands on. We were listening to an interview with Andy Weir, and don't quote me as misquoting Andy Weir, but he was basically saying that he loves doing the research for all of the science behind whatever he's put into his books, but he hates the actual part of writing it. And that's what I as like I guess as someone who has more of a background in like prose writing found very jarring about the book. I love his storytelling, but I was like the way that he writes is more the way like a dude would talk to you. And that's also why normally I can never listen to audiobooks. I tune out, I lose focus, my mind wanders. But with this book, twice I felt inclined to listen to it on audiobook versus reading it with my eyeballs because I just when I sit down to read that book, I'm just like I can't with this writing. But then when it's read out loud, I'm just like, oh yeah, this is how a person would talk like conversationally with you. And that's why I think it also lends itself to being like very filmable because it's like the character is basically written into all of the narration. So, I don't know. I thought the character of Ryland Grace was portrayed so well and so beautifully. And like all the best things about these characters came to life. And I don't know. I was just raving with all of my friends afterwards. And actually, one of my close friends just went and finally got a chance to watch it today. So I'm so glad that it's still in theaters. And every single person who has seen this after me has just come to me with the text message, amaze, amaze, amaze. So that's always the text that I get after anyone watches this movie. My cousin also went and watched it twice. I would have loved to go twice, but like life has just been so chaotic. But I like immediately after I saw it, I was just like, this is one of those movies that you watch over and over and over again. And like you'll be watching it like with your kids will be showing it to their kids. Like it has like instant like classic potential. So high praise, yeah.
I thought they kind of buried the amaze line. Like he said it, like if it was like in the heat of all the action or whatever. So like it felt like in the book it was like a lot more prevalent. So I'm interested to hear that people picked up on that being such a key phrase. Awesome. Well, it looks like we actually have a second guest here today. Looks like Guy has joined us. Guy has previously been on the podcast.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us. Yeah, so we're just kind of going
My
over our
pleasure.
thoughts on the movie. And I think you'll have limited time if that if I heard right. Yeah, we're just talking about like how, the format that we saw the movie in, and then your just thoughts because you read the book as well. So your thoughts as a book reader versus
I did the audiobook though. I was driving.
yeah, that's right, right. Yeah, so like how did you see it, and what did you think?
Well, I saw it with Talia in the theater in 70 Mill. I thought it was quite beautiful. I found it a little, I mean, for my taste, I found it a little cotton candy. It was a popcorn movie, and I didn't expect it to be that so much. I mean, I knew it was going to sort of go there to a certain degree, but I, I don't want to contradict Free, but I felt like the missing sort of apocalyptic notions of it were. I was disappointed that there wasn't more of that, because I really did like in the book how it explained the reasons for going, and I think that kind of got glossed over. I felt, but generally, I mean, I can't say I didn't like it. I did like it. I didn't like it nearly as much as I like The Martian. But they had to make some choices, and they made choices for the mass audience, I think, and I think that came through for me. Generally, I thought it was really well done. It was a good adaptation. It was pretty faithful. I'm surprised they did the ending. I thought they were going to skip that ending. I thought they would resolve it in a different way in the movie, but they stuck to it, which was interesting to see.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Yeah, so let's go with Talia next then. And obviously,
Sure.
you saw it together with with Guy, so you saw it in 70 mil as well.
It's hard to follow all these giants. I feel like you've touched on so many of the key aspects, but I wrote a few notes, so I'll go back on them. As Spencer referenced, there were only a few venues that even showed the 70 millimeter film and the IMAX. So I saw it with Guy in non IMAX 70 millimeter film at Odeon Cineplex Theater here in Vancouver, BC. And it is hard to believe that Barbenheimer was a few years ago, as you said, because I do remember seeing Gosling really pop in that comedic role in Barbie, and then seeing the cinematography in Oppenheimer, and a very like somber, long film, and then to flash into this Lord and Miller movie, which was epically long, but flies by so quickly because it is a little bit of that, not necessarily cloyingly sweet, but like lots of dopamine hits, lots of giggles, like very much a page turner. And I wasn't entirely surprised, because that's the experience of reading the book, whether you listen to it or read it. It's like it just keeps going very easily, and you might just realize that while sitting down to read a chapter, like, oh, I've read 10. Just it runs by really quickly, catches fire. But I did find it very warm. I don't know if that's because of the 70 millimeter film. I don't pretend to know so much. But the Into the Spider-Verse and the Miles Morales films that the directors have worked on did feel like they breathed a lot of life into an old series. I mean, Spider-Man is a comic book that my father considers like old, because it was old when he read it. And so to be able to approach material and breathe warmth and like belief into it does take kind of a careful deftness, like that sort of precision. And it does feel like the people who created this really did care about the source material. The way they handled it may be up to discussion, but they're not unfamiliar, There's no way to say that they just like glanced at the title page and said like, okay, we get it, it's kind of about space. Like they're following pretty much every beat that we expect them to. And I did enjoy it, obviously. I didn't see it 3 times, but it's hard to imagine a better way that they could have done it, considering that they do need to take that middle path. And if you're going to express this like funny, giggly story, you don't really have all the time to delve into apocalypse and also have a hint at a happy ending. And things were more shallow than the book characters. I know that we can probably touch on it later, but the Rocky character, obviously everyone loved him, but it's hard to see him as like an intellectual equal or superior to Ryland Grace, as opposed to like this awesome sidekick. And I think Priya mentioned when we did our podcast episode of the climactic scene in the book where there's this breaking of containment from their respective atmospheres, and both characters sort of do this self-sacrifice to save each other. And Priya's like, yeah, but did you ever think anyone was going to die? Like, we've come this far. There was no real drama there. And so I did feel something of that in the movie, where these beats of like, I'll never be able to go home, like my friend is lost we don't really get to linger there for very long before we're like off to Never Never Land. How about you, Dan?
So yeah, I'll just say off the bat, I mean, I liked it, obviously. I think I agree with you, that it was like it was a good adaptation. I felt like the tone, like really, was nailed. Like especially the space scenes were nailed. Like as when I'm reading the book, you kind of feel it's like a kind of a lighter, kind of not comedic, but like it's just like a lighter kind of fare. Because like we've been reading a lot of heavy, like we read Dune and Three Body Problem and all those things, and like, those are really heavyweight. And this is like sort of like lighter, like it's just I don't know, like just more fun, right, to read. I also did miss the guy was saying some of the more apocalyptic parts of it. Like they didn't talk about any of the nuking stuff or like paving over was it paving over Africa, right? Any of those like all the kind of like crimes against humanity that Strat did in the book to kind of give humanity a little bit more time. One thing, hearing your guys' reaction, Priya's reaction, I think is, and my reaction, I think is like very on brand for us. Like where Priya was like always like talking about like kind of not paying close attention to the science stuff and like caring more about the characters. Where I cared a lot more about the science stuff and not so much about the characters. And I felt it kind of the same in the movie. Like they talked about the science stuff, but like it wasn't as in depth in the book. I mean, obviously, like that doesn't play well on the screen, and like I think they did it. They talked about it enough, but like the whole like there was like a whole chapter on like how they did like the generational breeding of the Taumiba and like how it eventually and like it becomes like this huge like reveal that like oh like it's not only nitrogen resistant but it's like xenonite resistant and like that's how it was able to escape and like they kind of glanced over it, I thought. But overall, like I also agree. It was great. I think some of the changes they made were kind of interesting. Like it was mostly faithful. Actually, that was a question for Spencer. Like, did you go back and look at like the differences between the book and the movie afterwards, or you're not familiar with them, or?
So, my junior engineer here and her partner are big fans of the book. Like, her partner Jose is like, that's his favorite book of all time is Project Hail Mary. So, I got a lot of the here's what I didn't like because it's not the same in the book. And my general counter argument to that was always, I get it. I get why that's super interesting that there's chapters worth of where you find out Rocky's certain chordal tones mean certain things like major sevenths and stuff. And I'm a music nerd. Like, I like synthesizers. I'm the type of person who does like getting nerdy about that. Like, I'm very upset about certain mic choices in movies a lot of the time because I'm like, that mic just didn't exist or you're not even using that mic the correct way.
Mm.
But I felt like I at no point felt like I lost anything within the translation from book to screen from like, so I'd hear the differences and stuff. And outside of the sort of apocalyptic stuff, Dan, that you and Guy are talking about with the whole paving Africa and all that, where you sort of get the more grayness of Stroud's character and stuff. um I don't know if that was 100% necessary, at least in how the adaptation had to work, because obviously you have what 2.5 hours. You can't really push this more than that. I would say the only argument I would say that I heard a lot. I didn't feel it as much. Was the sort of multi-ending of it all of like, okay, he's going home. Oh, the Talamoeba have escaped because the Xenonite. They can get through the Xenonite. Okay. Oh no, now he has to go save Rocky. Okay. And then he wakes up and he's on Rocky's planet, and it's just like, and I liked it all, but there was a lot of people who didn't like that sort of stuff. But like, I think overall, like I didn't all the science stuff. I felt like I was following along pretty easily, and all the sort of emotional arc. I also didn't find that, at least for me, that Rocky was made too sidekicky. I think there was definitely a possibility, but I kind of saw him, and it kind of gets explained in the film too that, he's kind of the engineer, so he sort of plays that engineer role. And and an engineer, also being an engineer, it's not like an engineer's dumb, but like their skill set is definitely a more specific skill set that supports, the sort of theoretical side that Grace is sort of doing. And also, it wasn't that I don't think Rocky was ever felt dumb outside of like obviously the translation of whatever his language in and stuff. But yeah, I from talking to those two about their experience and stuff, like I get it, but I was like, I didn't lose anything overall. Like the apocalypticness of it all felt pretty good. The sort of grayness and pragmaticism that is Stroud's character seemed to come through enough for me and stuff. But yeah, I totally get it. It's definitely a popcorn movie.
Would
Yeah.
you believe us if I told you, Spencer, that all of us read or listened to several scenes with a Thai phlebotomist and Strat, including lots of blood drawing about the predisposition towards comas in certain genetic sequences?
So
Because
I was
that
aware
was so many pages that didn't
so
need to
I
be
was
there.
aware of that because I was like, so they told me that, yeah, it's like these three are more likely to survive an induced coma over that extended period, and obviously it fails in those two even though they had the gene. And I was like, doesn't matter to me. As someone who's coming in blind, I got that the emotional stake that, that these two died because of some failure in the health system, like the medical, like life support system, or just something happened. Yeah, I didn't really feel like it was, I missed anything, at least on a
Likewise.
science edge.
I think
Yeah.
plenty of us are fine accepting healthcare is difficult, space travel is dangerous. We don't need pages and chapters of explanation to arrive at a point where a system has failed at some point. So
Yes.
I think there were some smart decisions on pacing in the movie.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
know, going back to the Rocky thing of the speech thing, and like I said, they were disappointed that it didn't go in tomorrow. I was like, I don't need to know. I can see that there's a FFT like generator on the laptop screen, and you're recognizing tones. Like it's like we know that different whale pods have different language, like accents and stuff. I can forgive that I didn't have to know the extreme detail of how he's translating, Rocky.
Likewise. I
Personally,
think in some of my favorite, points in fiction where you have a somewhat unlikely understanding of a foreign language. In Ender's Game, there's like speculation of a hive mind arachnid kind of intelligence, where obviously sentience arises very differently than it does in a sovereign individual, but they're still able to communicate. And I'm like, very cool idea, non humanoid alien. That being said, I'm on board. And similarly, in his Dark Materials, when one of the characters goes into a different world and meets with the Mulefa, where their language is heavily influenced by, the motions of parts of their body. They have trunks, and that like alters the sound of different languages. There's a few paragraphs about how it means one thing with a swift like flick to the left and a different thing when the trunk is moving slowly. And I'm like, you've got it. From here on, I can assume that these characters have formed a bit of mutual understanding, and that's plenty for me. And I say that as someone who really likes linguistics and translation. Even I do not need, proof every other sentence.
I honestly think that Andy Weir has accidentally, or maybe partially accidentally, written a very character-driven story, because I feel like he's trying to do two things at once. And this is going back to what Dan was saying about how both of our reactions to the movie are exactly what you'd expect, because I notoriously love a character driven story. So even within the scope of sci-fi, the story matters to me only so much as I care about the characters. And weirdly enough, the three body problem kind of challenged that opinion for me, or that like that stance for me, because I feel like three body problem is not a very character driven story, but I think it's like something beyond that. It's like a how can we ever do an episode without referencing three body problem, right?
I was gonna say like I probably should have like included spoiler warning for three biter problem because but did I say it like we're gonna talk about it?
Our listeners should know.
Yeah, it's just kind
Well,
of
this is
So Spencer, I don't know if you're familiar with that franchise, but that's sort of all of our passion.
I am aware of it, but I can't tell you like anything details about it other than
Okay.
it's a great title. It's
Yeah.
just
Well,
an amazing title.
We'll try not to be too specific about our spoilers because
this
you should
isn't a
You can
experience
be
spoiler,
it.
though.
specific. You're not going to spoil it for me.
Okay.
Trust me.
Being on the
You can go
podcast is
into
like being with someone who like can't really get over their ex that they talk about, so it will be mentioned.
Yeah, so what I was saying was that I think that book series, it challenged my stance because, but it not completely, because I think it was, instead of being character driven, it was more like humanity driven. And I think that in a sense is what comes across in Project Hail Mary as well, something that's humanity driven more than apocalypse driven. Like, yes, the apocalyptic scenario is the vehicle for like getting the story across to you, but it keeps humanity at the center, because, and humanity, strangely, does not mean allegiance just to humans, and that's what I find so beautiful about this entire story. And I don't know how, I guess if it's coming across, he must have thought deeply about it. It's just that whenever I hear Andy Weir talk, he doesn't seem like he's thinking about these things very deeply, but then his characters seem to embody these ideals so profoundly that, like, I don't care, because there are a lot of plot holes in the science-y parts of the story. Not the mathematical science that he likes to do on the page, but like the concepts and the ideas. Like, there are plot holes within that, but you can forgive those plot holes, because what he's trying to do ultimately is like communicate that, humanity triumphs, and humanity's mission is not just to save itself, but to save life in general, and to connect with something beyond ourselves. And then I don't care if like the movie decided to omit like how they decided that these people are going to be sent out into space, or all of these like background experiments that they did. Like, I'm kind of glad that they got rid of all that stuff. I'm glad that they didn't show Ryland Grace doing like mathematical equations on the ship, because I feel like if you want the maximum amount of people to be able to get the message of this movie and to actually watch it, you kind of do have to like cut a few things and make sure like the heart of the story is getting across. So ultimately, anything that they sacrificed in favor of getting the movie to work, I think was for the better.
Can we talk about what you said about humanity, Priya? Because I think it's really instructive, and it comes across in The Martian as well, where it ends up being a very optimistic story, even though it's about being marooned in an inhospitable environment. There's a rallying of humanity, and we don't see as much of the rallying of humanity, but you see humanity exemplified through these two characters. And I just grabbed the quote because it's germane. When Ryland Grace, for context, is teaching Rocky about biology, because Rocky's species doesn't know as much about genetics and biology and the radiation and how that can cause cancer. So they're explaining biology, and Rocky points out another similarity. You and me both willing to die for our people. Why? Question. Evolution, hate death. It's good for the species, I say. A self-sacrifice instinct makes the species as a whole more likely to continue. Not all Iridians willing to die for others. I chuckle. Not all humans either. You and me are good people, Rocky says. And both characters innately understand that, like, people is encompassing them, not just humanity.
Well, what adds further nuance to this part of the book is also the fact that Ryland did not want to go. He didn't want to go on this mission.
You're
He
right.
was literally dragged into going. And that actually also adds some realism to the situation that people may not actively choose when initially given the opportunity to sacrifice themselves or to be sacrificing. But it also shows character development that he grew into that sort of person because one, he was already in the situation now, and now he has to make a choice. I'm the last person left who can actually make a difference in the scenario. And ultimately, I think like the turning point in his character is that when he has to make the choice between going back and staying and helping someone who is not even human but alien to him, he makes that choice to ultimately help him. And I think that that is just a complete character arc that works for me. As a reader and as a viewer of the movie. So that I think was one of the most powerful ways in which that part of the book that you referenced comes across.
So one thing I want to do, for us, like the people who've read the book, is sort of talk. We kind of alluded to like some of the changes that they made, but like what were I guess like which things stood out the most that you liked or disliked, or maybe one of each, changes from the book that you thought like worked in the adaptation, or like really added to the story, because like there weren't a lot of changes, but there were some, and so. Maybe I'll go first. Let you guys think about it for a second. So, like I mentioned before, like I did kind of miss the kind of stakes, the humanity stakes around, just the kind of dire circumstance they're in, and like they did talk about it and like talked about the sons dying and like, but like I felt like in the book that like they really hammered that home, and like with all the stuff that Strat was doing, and like they talked about the astrophage a lot more, and like it just seemed like the stakes were a lot higher. I mean, obviously like we knew the stakes, but I don't know, like that point was just hammered home a little bit more in the book for me, or it was like more impactful. But the things I did like, the big change, there's two things that I really liked that they added. The first thing was that at the end, Strat gets the message. They show Strat getting the message from Grace, which is not in the book, which was interesting because like I was when we weren't sure of like which way Ryan was gonna go, like I really wanted to see his reaction, Strats and whoever's reaction to like all the stuff he just went through, to get them that information, and like how to solve it. So like seeing Strat's reaction to that was very interesting, and I thought it was a good addition. I'm glad they showed it. But the thing that was the most surprising, because like throughout the whole movie, I was like, why aren't they talking about the Beatles? Like that was such a big point in like in the book, because like they kept mentioning it, and like like they're gonna like reference, they're gonna like save the ship, or they're gonna save the day. They're gonna be like, it's like Chekhov's beetle, right? Like they're gonna they're there for a reason. But I will say that it was completely saved by the scene when they do show the Beatles and they played Two of Us over it, which is like the perfect song for that movie. I would never have guessed that, like, one, they would get the rights for it, and two, that it would be so perfect for the story. And like you just like watching it, and like man, this song just like perfectly fits. So like that, I think that was the best adaptation choice for me, for the movie.
Absolutely.
So let's go with Talia next.
Thank you for pointing out those subtleties. Now that you bring it up, I'm like, oh yes, of course. It reminded me of the Mad Men episode where I think they're just showing how much money they're getting for the industry, because the entire plot of that episode is about how the customer wants a jingle, and of course we can't afford the Beatles. And then the cut at the end is Don Draper putting on Tomorrow Never Knows and just letting it play for like a minute as the credits roll. You're like, oh my goodness. Here we go again. Here we go again. So the Beatles are the true MVP of all media, I think, is what we conclude. But back to Project Hail Mary. I was very impressed by the tone direction in, I think what I saw mostly was the aesthetics and the videography. I was really impressed that like all the outfits are really sharp. The wolf cardigan, very drippy. A lot of the costume choices there are like fashion blogs that look up anything in popular movies, and they're all sold out. It's the aesthetics of the movie were really well advertised. There's like La La Land posters with Rocky on them. They really understood the aesthetics and how to make them not too corny, but really inspiring. And I would agree with what Dan said about how space is handled. The planet that we see swirling underneath us, it feels very real and beautiful. And when you see the mechanism of the ship, it becomes, or at least became to me, quite real that even without spoken explanations of humanity's sacrifice, you can see hundreds of billions of dollars of engineering in this world dedicated into what is really a Hail Mary hope. It's a Hail Mary pass. Like, we're going to have 30 layers of triple redundant systems because world's going to end anyway. It might not mean anything. So that little bit, I think, carried me over. And now I can only think of positive things to say. So I wish Guy were back on because he's definitely got some. I can speak for him. He did share some of his words that the soundtrack that was chosen for this movie were not just the music, but the soundtrack. He said, I can just tell there were way too many meetings about that. And everyone wanted to have the emotional swelling on their part because there's this cue of sound and music where there's, oh, we're supposed to feel very dramatic and very emotional right now, that they don't reserve for one point, but it happens all the time throughout the movie. And it's a little bit like getting that sugar high over and over again. So I think that would be maybe a downside, but that's what the book was like. It's always just very saccharine. So
I have a nitpick, but you reminded me of a nitpick that I have about the movie. Given your talk about aesthetics, so like in the movie, they drug Ryland, and then like he just goes like he has no chance to like not go on the ship. They like drug him for a couple days, and then he's just on the ship, right? So how did he get all those ironic T-shirts onto into his luggage? Did they pack it for him?
I don't care about that.
like
I'm gonna assume that Strat like was like just grab everything in his room and just throw it in this, because even the grace is in his handwriting, like it's just like we just threw everything that was in there, this was
And
just
Strat
his normal
has no
vibe.
ethics at all. Like, she could probably recreate his entire wardrobe with the slave labor if it helped her ambition.
And speaking of Strat, I do have to shout out to another reason number 4 why I knew I'd probably enjoy this is I love Sandra Hüller. I saw VIF 2023 was when the first time I kind of clocked her, because it was the year of Zone of Interest and Anatomy of a Fall. She was in both those, which is why I was kind of bummed she didn't win Best Actress that year. But she's just so good at playing that type of person of like, she can play cold, but she's not always totally cold. And apparently she's the one who is like, I'm only singing that Harry Styles song. I will do the karaoke scene, but I am choosing the song, and this is the only song I'm doing. Which I thought was pretty, maybe very German of her, but also like she knew it was going to hit. And apparently
the way
Harry
she mic
Styles
dropped
was
it
into it
at the end of it, like it was like, okay, I'm done. That was pretty funny.
That was actually my gripe. My gripe.
Yeah, I was gonna go to you, Priya. Like, what did you do dislike about the adaptation? Would you like?
My gripe was, I think if I can only think of one gripe, it was the fact that there was karaoke in the movie and that she sang a Harry Styles song.
Don't you remember Priya texted us, Strat would never do that.
Strat would not sing a Harry Styles song. Are you kidding me? Like, she would do a lot of things, but not that. So that took me out of her character a little bit. By the way, I loved the movie Anatomy of a Fall, and I loved her in that. So I was very happy to see her appear in this movie. And I thought she was like perfect in every scene that she was in. And she even delivered that song beautifully. Like it wasn't in her, the problem wasn't her delivery of that song or her singing that song. It was just that I don't know why it was there. Like I can't I can't understand like why they put that in there other than to just do a thing.
I
But
think they agree with every character though, including Scott.
and now my not so profound answer for what I'm glad or what I'm happy about that they took out was, as you know, I had a lot of gripes with like the weirdly awkwardly sexual characters that they had in the backstory. Spencer has no idea what this is about, and he's better off not having an idea what this is about. They were
And
just like
racial stereotyping and
yeah,
unfortunate things.
yeah,
Question:
very unfortunate
Is it
things. Cringe.
Very cringe.
is it about the two science officers, the science officer who was originally supposed to go, and the obviously his replacement that they're kind of canoodling that kind of gets shown slightly? Is it those two characters that the
Yeah,
weird conversations have?
they talk a lot
I
about a lot
wonder
more
if
about
those
it.
were a
Yeah.
stand-in for those two characters. There's like two
Well, I think
characters were kind of
they
bent
named them, right?
over.
Yeah, it was Dubois
Yeah.
and the other one. But yeah, I think it was that relationship.
It's
Yeah.
that it's not even just that it's shown, it's like the way that it's written is very like climb out of your skin. If you've ever known the person or the bully or a certain politician who might say, I'm not going to say, and then they'll say something really lewd. You're like, oh, why do I have to read about that? And it's like, and I'm not going to assume that this only black character like hates fine wines and loves basketball. You probably think that because you're a racist. I'm like, what? I was reading a book about science. How did we get here?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
so out of place
good
and it's
idea
like
that cut.
yeah.
Cut.
Yeah.
Just instantly cut. So yeah, smart choices.
I'm so glad. And then this truly became like a family-friendly movie, which I love because it has all the themes that you'd want to sit down and watch with kids, right? So I was really glad for that. And I think I heard I'm just like paraphrasing or going based off of hearsay, but I think Ryan Gosling also wanted this movie to be something that, you know, he could watch with his daughters and like his daughters were even on set a lot of the times. He mentioned that his reactions a lot of the times to like Rocky's lines were because like his daughters were in front of him. So yeah, it's like really heartwarming. So I'm like super happy with all of these changes that they made. And like one true highlight was Rocky's ship was so freaking cool when he goes inside and like the way that they showed his ship, like it really does look like an alien ship. So um that was really cool to see. And then also just like the planet. What's the planet? What do they name it?
Adrian.
Adrian? Yeah.
Yeah.
Planet Adrian is depicted in a way that's like so otherworldly and cool. I just love that.
I do want to just jump back a little bit, just because when we were talking, just before we started talking about the differences in the book, we were talking about like the sort of overarchingness of like empathy and all that in the thing. And before we started the podcast, I was just putting down some little like things I wanted to, make sure, or like just my thoughts. And the first two things I did right were empathy and communication, because I think it was really and I wonder, like, and it seems like the book is very good at sort of communicating this thing too, where it was like the minute you can communicate with someone and talk to someone or something that isn't, there's a level of empathy that like jumps up immediately. And going back to the movie of it all, and Gosling, I thought the whole scene where Rocky finally finds out it's a one-way trip for Gosling, and Gosling's sort of lying to himself that he's okay with it, and just that whole emotional arc and the thought of like empathy, where Rocky's like, well, you can see Rocky, and the puppeteering is just so great. The fact that it's a puppet 90% of the time is
Yeah.
amazing, but just to show that it's like there's a level of empathy that only comes from like to a certain degree talking, some form of communication, whether it's actually speaking the same language or just like communicating. And and then going back to the concept of like whether or not I need to know how they translate Rocky's language or anything. I today I saw this video of a dog named Flambeau who decides to call a smaller dog that his parent is fostering a cat because he lives with a cat and they're the same size and he's a dog. So that dog must be a cat, and has one of those touch buttons, like you could see like cats and certain animals and stuff they've been using. And it's just like, just even that, where like, it's like this dog has decided that's the tonal word that he has associated with an animal and that level. And then I watched another video of this because I was like, I gotta see this dog call a dog a cat and see where it goes. He then I guess it turns out that this dog that they were fostering had some sort of worm disease, heartworm or something, so they were keeping it isolated. And he kept on asking, where's cat, where's cat, where did cat go? And it was just like, it's interesting that like the minute we understand, like communicate, that you get this empathy. And you see it too, as someone who came from a small town who didn't interact with a lot of people of either color or queer people or anything, and then coming into Vancouver and living with people of color and queer people and stuff, and like becoming friends with that, the amount of like that expansion and seeing that difference of like my worldview compared to people who still are from the small town I'm from, and how do I get that? Well, I get that through empathy because I communicate with people. And, and it's just an interesting, concept that, isn't sci-fi, but it's an interesting, like, going back to the humanity of it all, that, empathy and communication are kind of the keys to making the world better,
Yeah, in the book they definitely spend a lot of time on like setting up the mechanism for how they communicate, like like detailing like each thing, and then like there's a lot. They seem to kind of like gloss over it, and I think there's a good adaptation choice. Like I think they did enough work to like establish like how the translation works, but like in the book it was like really drawn out. He talked about like Excel spreadsheets and everything, and like it's like there's a lot of technical explanation about it. So I think that was a good adaptation choice. The one thing that I was thinking of, and like I also I forgot who mentioned it, but like I also went back and like watched a bunch of stuff after I saw the movie, and weirdly, like my YouTube recommendation like kind of somehow knew that like I saw Project Hail Mary, and then like I got a whole bunch of like behind the scenes or like whatever videos about it. But like one of the ones that was interesting was like people kind of thinking like where it ranks within other sci-fi movies, and like is it like an instant classic? Is it the best sci-fi movie ever? And so we're all sci-fi fans, so I wanted to kind of gauge like where you would kind of put it in the sci-fi genre of movies. Like how high in that list would you put it, and like what, I guess, like what movies would you put it above or below? Maybe let's start with Priya.
This feels like such a trick question to me. Like, I don't know what I would put it above or below.
There's a correct answer, but no, I'm just kidding.
Do you see the list that Dan made in the notes, Priya? I can read it to you if you haven't seen it.
Oh yeah, I haven't looked at that. Hold on.
I mean, I just put a couple that I thought about, like some of the big ones. Yeah, like Interstellar, Arrival, Contact, 2001. Like there's like Star Wars, also Star Trek, any sci-fi. Any sci-fi movie you can think of. Like, is there anything that's better that you can think of, or is it just like
Arrival
the
is
best?
better.
Yeah,
Arrival is very close to my heart. So, Arrival is close to my heart because when I was trying to think of an analogy for for a long time, I thought like my writing process was somehow inherently wrong because I write non-linearly. And then I remembered Arrival and I was like, oh, it's like Arrival, how like time becomes non-linear for her. Spoiler. But yeah, so oh yeah, cut that if it's a spoiler or mention spoiler before.
There's enough time that's passed. It's sorry.
It's gotten pretty old. Yeah. So yeah, so Arrival is very close to my heart, and I rewatched it recently actually. So I really love that, but it's a completely different type of movie. So I would feel like this is quite up there in the type of mood that it attempts to get across. And I don't know, like the idea of calling something a popcorn movie is interesting to me because I feel like in different ways all movies that you go to watch in the theater are popcorn movies. I'm eating popcorn as I'm watching them, but for different reasons, right? So I feel like this one was, I guess, cotton candy maybe is the more suitable term, but I don't think it's quite that either. I think that it might be like on the surface level that, but I think that when you peel back the layers, there's like more and more and more that you get out of it. So, but like the mood staying light and sort of fun is like it's kind of in a league of its own with in that sense. So yeah, I wouldn't like compare I wouldn't even compare it to movies like Arrival, for example. Like I think or Dune especially, because I think that they share a genre, but they don't share much more than that. Sci-fi is a very broad genre, and there's a lot of overlap. There's like sci-fi fantasy, there's speculative fiction kind of often overlaps with sci-fi. There's space opera versus hard sci-fi. So I think that with all the varieties of genres you get within sci-fi, it's really hard to do a direct comparison. Um, so I don't know. I just feel like if I if I were to reference some of my favorite sci-fi movies, this would definitely be on the list. But for different reasons than certain other movies would be on the list. I don't know. That's a very winding roundabout answer that you probably didn't ask for, but
No, it's a good answer. Good
it
answer.
is what it is.
Let's go with Talia, then Spencer.
Oh boy, I think I might rank this movie higher as a movie than a sci-fi movie, if that makes any sense. Like if you were looking for the experience of sitting down and watching a movie, particularly the way that we saw it, which was in a theater full of like raucous laughter and everyone enjoying and laughing at the same jokes, it was almost as touching as like how I remember watching The Princess Bride with my parents. And I know that's very high praise, and I don't think it's, Mandy Patinkin good, but it was very warm and jovial, whereas it did not remind me of Arrival or Dune, the miniseries, the only good adaptation before Denis. I
Oh
do
man,
think.
more hot takes.
Oh, you want another hot take? I was never a fan of The Princess Bride.
I'll
Priya,
give you even a hotter. I've never even seen it,
that
which is ridiculous.
this is gonna be the most censored episode of all of Rehydrate. I enjoyed the experience. The sci-fi visuals, like the planet and the spaceships, were cool. It rewards, the little geek in you, at least in me, that likes that. And I don't know that true hard science fiction can really exist in movies. It feels like it's kind of constrained to books. Maybe that's my hot take. I did think that of the ones you've listed, Interstellar is like a clear top. Interstellar made people think differently about time and about what's important to them. And I don't know that this reached that level, but it's in the conversation. How about you, Spence?
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree pretty much with a lot of points that are being made already. Is that it's sci-fi is just so broad. It's hard to sort of be like, here are the best sci-fi movies. Specific, you kind of have to get into weird specifics like hard sci-fi and stuff. But I would definitely put it on a list. Like if I was making like a top 5, top 10 list of like sci-fi movies that I enjoy, it'd definitely probably be in consideration. Um, I really love Arrival, and I got to see it in the theater at the VIF Center a couple of years ago because I had never I think I had watched it like half watched it once, but I hadn't really like fully sat down and watched it. Like on a DVD or something, but being in a theater makes it so much different when you get to like have to lock in sort of thing. But yeah, I mean the other one that I was thinking of too about this, when it comes to sci-fi movies is like you kind of get two paces a lot of the time. You either get the slow, sort of methodical, thoughtful ones like 2001. The one that's not on the list that I would always sort of reference is Solaris by Tarkovsky, because I think it's an interesting one too, where it's a lot of it's about human emotional stuff. If you haven't seen it, highly recommend it. It's generally on like the Criterion Collection channel, and I think it's maybe on Crave if you're up in Canada. Um, but it's so. But overall, generally, I'm the type of person. I'm kind of like Priya. I could care less how solid the science is. If it doesn't have an emotional arc or story, I'm kind of out. And even 2001 Solaris, those slower ones are really like well done with them, with that sort of stuff. But I'm also, again, being a child of the 90s, Star Wars was a big early thing for me. Now, I wouldn't say I'm much of a Star Wars fan overall. But maybe it's, how they always, the sort of false thing of like you start off liberal as a youngster and turn into conservative. I think it's maybe more you start off as a Star Wars fan and become more of a Star Trek fan by the end of your thing. So I'm also a big Star Trek fan. But yeah, I think as a film, I definitely think it ranks a lot higher than some other sci-fi films would in my list. But yeah, I found a lot more similarities to this in Arrival than I guess I would expect. But again, I think the reason is for that is more of the empathetic communication sort of through line, more than it is about, the hard sci-fi or like how popcorny it is or how cotton candy it is. Like, I think you got to have a little bit of fun in film sometimes. Like, I love, again, going back to Solaris, I love Solaris in 2001. I will fall asleep generally at one point if I start watching it at the wrong time of day for me. Like, I'm gonna nod off if in certain sections, and I think I'm not losing a lot of context in that case. Maybe Solaris more than 2001 because it's in Russian, but it's overall. I think, yeah, I would definitely I would probably put this on a favorite sci-fi list.
Yeah, so I'll also say like I think 2001 is like the best movie of all time, and this did not change my opinion of that. Yeah, like I love like the slow, kind of methodical pacing of it, and like that movie just like amazing in every single way that everyone already knows. I haven't seen Solaris, but I've actually seen it referenced a couple times, and like now like I'm definitely gonna go watch it. Yeah. So, but as far as like Project Hail Mary, I would probably like given the list, I was just kind of like thinking of like the kind of bigger sci-fi movies and like. I definitely liked it better than Arrival. I'm actually like, I guess maybe an exception here. Like, I thought Arrival was like okay, like not amazing. Like it was fine, but like I don't know. I've never
It
like
was
watched
about
it a second.
linguistics, Dan. How could
I
anything be better than that?
I'd
I
like to
haven't
note
even.
I'm that way, but with Interstellar, because
Yeah.
Mr. Chris Nolan isn't my favorite director. I don't think
Oh.
he as amazing as a lot of people who are big into films love him. So
You have the Star Wars, Star Trek hot take. You have the Christopher Nolan hot. We're just like hot taking everything today. Yeah, as far as Interstellar, I think it's like at the same level for me. Like I think like the science elements of Interstellar were more interesting than Project Hail Mary, but like the characterization for Project Hail Mary was like, even though it's just like, Grace and Rocky, like I think it was like way better. Like I'm more interested in Grace and Rocky than I was in Murph and the guy's name. I forgot his name even, but like the guy and his daughter, like versus Rocky and Grace. I'm like way more interested in that relationship. So I probably put them at the same level. I think it's technically probably better than Contact, but I also have like a really soft spot for Contact. It's like I don't know, I just love it. So yeah, I would. It's definitely up there for me in the pantheon of sci-fi movies as well. I'm gonna have one more bonus question since this is a three body problem podcast. So what's a better adaptation for Priya and Thalia? Project Hail Mary movie or three body problem Netflix adaptation? I'm gonna go three body problem Netflix adaptation for me, but let's go with Thalia first.
Which is better, or which is a better adaptation?
However you want to define it.
Oh no, I'm in a quagmire. Project Hail Mary is more enjoyable. Yeah, I think it has more staying power. And Three Body Problem, I don't know, it's whatever. It's meh. It's so pale in comparison to the source material.
I don't know
Whereas
if I
this
agree with
feels
that.
like the source material is not that great and or like not that deep. And the movie takes something not that deep and makes a movie that's enjoyable but not that deep.
Wow, that's the hottest take of them all. How about you, Priya?
I was gonna say, pardon, how are you gonna ask me to choose?
You
The
don't have you can say
adaptation.
they're equal, but like
You've enraged everyone with this one
yeah,
question, Dan.
I,
This
I'm I'm
question
I'm
has
I'm putting my
bamboozled
flag
us.
in three body problem still. So like, yeah.
Okay, I'll give a nuanced answer like Talia did. I think that the three body problem adaptation was it made the most changes, right? And it did so for the better to take a book series and make it so much more accessible, so much more diverse, and so much more, I don't know, like streamlined. Like we it took like entire boring characters and gave them a different like, I don't know, a different look entirely. Didn't like they I guess they like combined characters even. They created analogs of characters who were just like not that inspiring in the books, and then you give them a better function in the show. So I think in that sense, and like as far as like creative license with adaptation goes, they did a lot with what they were working with in terms of source material. So that takes a lot of skill and a lot of I don't know, a lot of flexibility on the part of the writers and producers and all of that. So that is in a league of its own. And then as far as like what's more enjoyable, I would say definitely Project Hail Mary is more enjoyable as a movie, as a story. Um, you can you feel that gratification of going from like of having a conflict resolved in the span of a movie. So there's also that difference between movie versus series. Series that is incomplete at this moment. So like people are kind of left hanging, and after watching that show there have been a bunch of people who have said to me, "Yeah, I need to read the book because I need to see how this ends." So that's something that the show gave to people, like the urge to finally pick up that series. Um, because they watched the show first, so there is some merit to that. But I think as far as like with that, I wouldn't be able to tell you did I like the adaptation more or the books more. But with Project Hail Mary, I can definitely say that I liked the movie better than the book, which is again something you're not supposed to say as an avid reader, but I'm saying it anyway.
If you had to rewatch one of them right now, to me it's obvious. I would rewatch the movie. I would rewatch Project Hail Mary. There's no
Same.
rewatchability for me in the Netflix adaptation of Three. I am not drawn to watch that again before season 2 comes out.
Disagree.
I might do
I
it.
disagree.
I might do it. I
This
think
is
I'll
our
do
last
it.
podcast episode in which all the hosts fight.
We all disband because we cannot agree.
I forgot to mention the one other great sci-fi movie that always gets forgotten, which is Daft Punk's Interstellar 555, which was all the whole music video uh like series that they made, a whole movie where they just made an anime movie of
Oh,
the
really?
musicians and then cut it into all the music videos for
Oh, interesting.
the
Interesting.
bands. That I finally saw
Daft Punk.
that got reissued in theaters like 2 years ago, and it was rad
Oh,
to
it's in
watch.
theaters even. Wow. Interesting. All right. Well, I just want to say thank you very much to Spencer for joining us. I really appreciate your insights. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you guys too, and thanks for having me.
Thanks again to Talia and Priya for joining. And thank you for listening. Check out rehydrate.space for release episodes, reading lists, pronunciation guides, and all the other stuff that we have up there. Leave comments by emailing us at rehydrate@fastmail.com, Mastodon at rehydrate@mass.to, and Rehydrate on Blue Sky. And keep subscribing to the feed because I'm sure we'll come up with something in the future that we'll find time to review something new. But yeah, thanks for listening. See you next time.